small. Wow, tiny.
You are currently listening to Tiny Table,
where we explore TTRPGs you might not have heard of.
Whether big or small, we hope to cover them all.
Because we know that great things can come in tiny packages.
Hey gang, it's Holly. Sit back and listen as I walk you through the rules of Draw Steal. Ching! Sorry, there's going to be a lot of jokes like that. Draw Steal knows that there's nothing greater than the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. This tactical, heroic, cinematic fantasy game will appeal to the fans of The Black Company, Fire Emblem, that's a big one for me, and D&D 4th Edition, huge for Julie. Good King Omund is dead, and with him died the rule of law. Now Ajax the Invincible, the Iron Saint, holds Orden in the grip of his jade hand. The dragon phalanx has been deemed illegal, and those few who remained of Omund's chivalric force now hide their scales behind cowl and cloak. As the Hawk Lords take to the sky to snuff out all dissidents, chaos thrives. In Capital, the greatest city in this and any age, noble houses and upstart guilds vie for the dead prince's seat, all with their eyes on the Iron Saint's rule in the east. And in the great timescape, the Dusk Elves of Equinox bring their aberrant plane ever closer to the Prime Manifold, all at the whims of their Queen of Shadows. Every strike of lightning a lover betrayed. In these many worlds of strife and violence, one axiom holds true. Heroes are needed, now more than ever. Yield no ground, speak no lies, stand against all tyrants, until the last villain dies. The time has come to Draw Steal. What you'll need. Draw Steal is a game for 2 or more players, though we recommend 4 to 6 if you want a smooth gameplay experience. The game operates in the classic adversarial fantasy style, with players each controlling one hero as they face off against the monsters, traps, and obstructions presented by a single player, the director. Given the robust gameplay support given to directors in this system, along with the dedicated focus on thrilling combat, Draw Steal is a great game for newer game masters to get their feet wet with a more complex system. A session composed entirely of bloody fights and thrilling escapades is exactly what this game wants. Draw Steal works well for one-shot, modular, and campaign-length play. An average session of play will likely last around 2 to 4 hours depending on the complexity and scope of the adventure. The 4 echelons of play, separated along character levels 1 to 3rd, 4th to 6th, 7th to 9th, and 10th, give wildly different experiences as the heroes grow in power and influence. While a first echelon adventure like the one in our actual play might focus on local grievances and small communities, a 4th echelon adventure sees our heroes travel to the depths of space, aiming to crack the sun. To play Draw Steal, you'll need a handful of D10s and D6s for each player, along with character sheets and pencils. Given the game's tactical focus, you'll need a square gridded battle map and some tokens or miniatures to represent the combatants in a fight. You'll also need the core rules of the game, which are available in both print and PDF at mcdmproductions.com. As always, we highly recommend purchasing the game and supporting the creators if you want to try Draw Steal for yourself. However, if you're interested in dipping your toes in before spending money on the game, you'll be happy to hear that the official Draw Steal license allows for full reproduction of the game's text, and text of both core books can be found on steelcompendium.io. We also highly recommend the online character creation tool Forge Steal, which can be found at andyaiken.github.io/forgesteal. We found it made the character creation process smooth and intuitive. Before we continue, a brief content warning. Draw Steal is a game about fantasy heroes killing monsters and includes both prose and art depicting just that. None of it is gory or exploitative. Beyond its obvious depictions of medieval and magical violence, it will also inevitably touch on what is considered quote-unquote monstrous. Pages 1 and 2 of the Monsters book get into the weeds of this issue and directs tables to have a conversation before play about what the violence of their game will or won't focus on. One unique type of monster in the world of Draw Steel is the War Dog, a corpse reanimated into Ajax's army from the body banks of dead soldiers and conquered people alike. While we don't encounter them in our actual play, their presence is quite common across the spectrum of adventures given their relationship to the setting's main antagonist. In our own play, there is fantasy violence between heroes and goblins in all 3 episodes, including descriptions of dismemberment and blood. Episode 2 features a corpse with a severed head, Episode 3 features a PC death and depicts a young woman being magically harmed in a ritual. Preparation. For players, character creation begins by thinking broadly about what personality, fighting style, and vibe you want for your character. Keep these goals in mind to inform your choices along the step-by-step creation path, while also allowing yourself to discover new ideas as each phase presents new options. You'll start by selecting your character's ancestry, found on page 21 of the Heroes book. Draw Steel features original takes on classic humans, dwarves, and elves, and also supports several unique ancestries like four-armed time raiders, glass-skinned Memoneks, and future-sighted Hakan. Your choice of ancestry will grant your character a signature trait, along with a list of options for additional ancestral traits. While any given devil character will share the signature silver tongue trait, one player's might sport a prehensile tail and see through darkness with hellsight, while another sprints on bestial legs and soars with bat-like wings. Next, you'll select your character's culture and career, found on page 53. Your character's culture describes the society, or lack thereof, within which they were raised, while their career dictates the mundane life that preceded their heroic present. Each will grant your hero options for skills, languages, and perks to further customize them. If you're not sure which languages will be relevant for the adventure, feel free to leave some language slots open. During play, you can dramatically reveal, "Hold on, I speak this language," and add the relevant language to your permanent list. Your choice of career will also grant a list of options for your character's inciting incident. What happened that upset their steady state world and propelled them into a life of daring do? Your hero's life adventure is defined by their class, the most mechanically impactful choice you'll make during character creation. The class's chapters begin on page 69 and list the 9 class options you can select from in the core rules. Your character's 5 characteristics, might, agility, reason, intuition, and presence, are determined here, with each class starting their 2 signature characteristics at 2 and allowing a few options for how you assign your remaining 3. Class also determines a character's stamina, recoveries, and potency, which we'll detail later in the modes of play section. Once you've noted down these starting numbers and picked a few extra skills based on the class's skill groups, you'll get into the major choices of your class, your subclass, and abilities. Each class has a few subclass options that differentiate them both in and out of combat, and your selection will grant you unique features and abilities right away. Beyond your subclass choice, you will also select a signature ability, which is the free attack your character can always make in combat without expending any resources. You'll also select a heroic ability that costs 3 of your character's heroic resource and another heroic ability that costs 5. Take note of any abilities or features that you receive by default on top of your choices, and you'll have rounded out your hero's class selection. If your character has a martial focus, their final class selection will prompt you to choose a kit, which can be found on page 217. Kits describe the weapons, armor, and combat style of your hero, granting a unique signature ability tied to their weapon, along with varying bonuses to stamina, speed, stability, range, and damage. Get creative with how you combine your character's class and kit to create a truly unique character. For example, in our own play, our towering troubadour sprinted the battlefield with the imposing Panther kit. Instead of a puffy shirt and fancy rapier, this bard broke bones with a massive club while beating his bare chest. Now that's dramatic. Once your kit's selected and you've written in your free strikes, you're done. If you want a little extra spice to amp the character up, consider adding a complication from Chapter 8 on page 233. These 100 options can start your character hunted by pursuers, indebted to a devil, or infected with a slight case of lycanthropy. All the more reason to go adventuring. For directors, preparing for a session of Draw Steel should focus on combat, exploration, and intrigue, probably in that order. This is a game with 200 pages of rules elaborating on combat and 10 pages focused on negotiation, so let that combat shine. Page 10 of the Monsters books gives an excellent breakdown of step-by-step encounter building with both in-depth and quick select options to create a night's worth of satisfying combats. Keep things varied with different combat objectives, like defeating a specific foe, claiming an object, saving another's life, or surviving for a set period of time. But before you get into the weeds, pitch your campaign or session to your players to ensure everyone is on board for your ideas. If you want a classic low medieval fantasy, ground your adventure in Vasloria. For urban intrigue and high fantasy drama, set your players loose in Capital. And if you want to go full space fantasy zany, jump straight into the myriad worlds of the Timescape. All of these settings are detailed in page 10 of the Heroes book. Wherever you and your players adventure, punctuate combat encounters with opportunities to explore a hostile environment, negotiate with other interested parties, and interact with this part of the world and its history. If you're planning to run a long-term campaign, it's a good idea to have a sense of your primary villain so you can start teasing their presence with ominous portents and dastardly underlings. For a one-shot or short adventure, begin with a hot start to propel the heroes straight into the action. Finally, it's good to have a sense of what rewards the heroes will claim for their travails. The rewards chapter on page 313 of the Heroes books gives plenty of options for treasures, titles, wealth, and renown. If you got your players' favorite flavor of fantasy, a goal that requires courage to claim, and a gaggle of monsters between your heroes and victory, then you have what you need to run a game of Draw Steel. Modes of play. Draw Steel features 3 modes of play: combat, exploration, and negotiation. Across all these systems, the same core resolution mechanic is utilized: the power roll. When power rolls are made to determine the impact of a signature or heroic ability, it is referred to as an ability roll. In all other circumstances, it is referred to as a test. When you make a power roll, you roll 2 10-sided dice and add 1 characteristic to the result. Ability rolls will tell you what to add in their rules text, whereas the relevant characteristic for a test is decided by the director, accounting for player input regarding their approach. In all contexts, power rolls have the same 3 outcomes. Tier 1, if the result is 11 or lower. Tier 2 for a roll of 12 to 16, and Tier 3 if the total is 17 or higher. If you roll a natural 19 or 20 on a main action roll in combat, the result is a critical hit, allowing you to immediately take another main action. Power rolls can be modified by edges and banes. These represent situational advantages and disadvantages that could affect the outcome of the roll. If you make a power roll with an edge, you add +2 to the result, while a bane inflicts -2 instead. If you ever wind up with multiple sources for an edge, you instead receive a double edge, which upgrades the outcome of your standard power roll to the next highest tier. Double banes work much the same. If you have multiple banes, your outcome is downgraded by 1 tier. If you have an edge and a bane, they cancel each other out. If you have a double edge and a double bane, they cancel out as well. If you have a double edge and a bane, you keep a regular edge, and vice versa for a double bane and an edge. Don't worry about tracking exactly how many sources there are. If you have more than 1 source of either edge or bane, you have the double. With power rolls covered, let's discuss when you'll be rolling them most frequently. Combat. The combat chapter starts on page 265. When a fight breaks out and it's time to draw steel, roll a d10. On a 6 or higher, the player decides which side goes first. On a 5 or lower, the director decides. Whichever side goes first selects one creature who will act first, and they take their turn. When their turn concludes, the other side picks one creature who acts. This play proceeds back and forth until one side has completed taking all their turns. Then, the remaining side has all creatures who haven't gone yet take turns until they've similarly all acted. Directors will often have their enemies operate in groups of 2 or more based on the layout of the fight and the presence of minions. On a creature's turn, it gets to take a main action, a maneuver, and a move action. Class and monster abilities alike will explicitly list which type of action they are. And a main action can also be forgone in favor of a second maneuver or move. Many creatures also have unique triggered actions, which can be performed during or off their turn in response to a specific trigger. Each creature can perform only one triggered action per round. All creatures can also perform attacks of opportunity when an enemy leaves their adjacency as a free triggered action, which doesn't count against their once per round limit. Beyond the unique abilities of your hero, each type of action has a few universal variations. The move action can be used to advance, disengage, or ride. There are many universal maneuvers, such as aiding an attack, grabbing or escaping a grab, hiding and searching, catching your breath, and using consumables. And while you're usually going to use your various class actions with your main action, you can also always charge, defend, make a free strike, or heal your allies if no better options present themselves. All this fighting is sure to wear your hero down. Your hero's survivability is measured with their stamina. Your class and kit determines your starting stamina, and any damage you take reduces your stamina from that total. Your hero can regain their stamina by spending recoveries, which heal your hero for a third of their stamina maximum. Different classes receive different amounts of recoveries, which can be used freely outside of combat or by using the catch breath maneuver during combat. If your character hits 0 stamina or lower, they are dying, which gives them the bleeding condition and prevents them from catching their breath. If your hero hits negative stamina equal to half their maximum, they die, and are now of interest only to historians. But if they survive the encounter, each hero earns 1 victory. Victories empower your hero to strive for greater heights in each subsequent fight. Whenever a combat encounter begins, each hero gains heroic resources equal to their current victories. These resources power their various heroic abilities, and each class can gain more in unique ways throughout the fight. For example, the Holy Censor gains Wrath when they hurt or are hurt by the current target of their judgment, while the Shadow gains Insight when they spend surges while dealing damage. As your hero's victories ramp up over the course of an adventure, they'll start each fight that much closer to using their most powerful and costly abilities. As your recoveries dwindle and your victories mount, you'll want to always push just one fight further before finally yielding to take a respite. When your hero finally departs the danger to take a day to rest and recover, this respite recovers all their stamina and recoveries. It also converts all their victories into experience, resetting their victories to 0 but propelling them towards their next level up. Outside the scope of combat, heroes will explore the wide and wild world. When the heroes attempt a task where the consequences of failure are interesting or dramatic, and where failure won't grind the story to a halt, the director will call for a test. Each test will concern one of the 5 characteristics. Might tests rely on physical strength, agility tests on physical coordination and nimbleness, reason tests on mental acumen and education, intuition tests on observation and instinct, and present tests on force of personality. The director sets the test difficulty at easy, medium, or hard. Consult the table on page 250 to see how each tier of the test's power roll dictates the outcome of the test. On an easy test, The 3 tiers of outcomes are success with a consequence, success, and success with a reward. On a medium test, the 3 tiers are failure, success with a consequence, and success. On a hard test, the 3 tiers are failure with a consequence, failure, and success. Regardless of test difficulty, a natural 19 or 20 on the 2d10 roll grants a success with a reward. The test outcomes sections on page 250 and 251 gives a great rundown on the differences between these various outcomes. If a test is called for, and your hero has a relevant skill for the test, such as the climb skill when rolling a might test to scale a cliff face, you gain a +2 bonus to the test. Skills are brought up by the players, not the director, whose sole responsibility in tests is assigning difficulty and designating characteristic. The +2 bonus from a skill is not an edge, and can stack with the +2 from an edge if you have both. You can only apply one skill to a test. If the hero set to work on a prolonged shared goal, such as navigating a vast desert or performing a complex ritual, the director may call for a montage test, a sequence of tests where players take turns dictating how their hero attempts to further the group's goals. In a montage test, the party aims to collectively reach a number of successes before rolling too many failures, all within 2 full rounds of party action. For the full rules of montage tests, check page 261. Despite these incredible abilities, these heroes can't always make it alone. At times, they'll need to negotiate to get something from an NPC. The negotiation rules, starting on page 283, are used whenever the heroes try to convince an NPC to aid them, and the NPC is willing to listen, but conflicted about the proposition. When a negotiation begins, the director assigns the NPC in question 4 statistics: interest, patience, motivations, and pitfalls. Interest dictates how favorably the NPC will respond to the hero's request, while patience dictates how many more rounds of negotiation the NPC will tolerate. Interest and patience will increase and decrease over the course of negotiation. Motivations and pitfalls are topics of import to the NPC, positive and negative respectively. An NPC will have 2 of each, and there are 12 options to choose from both lists. An NPC with a legacy motivation desires fame while they live and acclaim after they die, while an NPC with a legacy pitfall views such aspirations as vanity, favoring a quiet life of little renown. Once the statistics are assigned for the NPC, conversation continues between both parties until the heroes put forth an argument. An argument contains 2 components. Here's what we want, and here's why you should give it to us. The player will then roll a reason, intuition, or presence test, based on the nature of their argument, adding relevant skill bonuses as necessary. If the argument appeals to one of the NPC's motivations, the array of 3 possible outcomes are more favorable. If the argument touches on one of the NPC's pitfalls, no roll is made, and the NPC's interest and patience both decrease by 1. After the argument is made and the results applied to the NPC's stats, they respond with an offer based on their current interest level. Each level of interest, from 0 to 5, dictates a different form of offer, from no, get out of my face, at a 0, all the way up to yeah, and I'll sweeten the deal even further, at a 5. If the NPC's interest is between 1 and 4, the heroes can decide to accept their offer or keep pushing with further arguments to attempt to improve their position. If the NPC's patience is 0 or their interest is 5, they'll clarify that this is their final offer. Once the heroes accept or decline the offer, the negotiation concludes. Legal. This product was created using the Draw Steel Creator License. Draw Steel is designed by James Introcaso, Willie Abil, and Robert Georgevich, with creative direction from Matt Colville and edited by Scott Fitzgerald Gray. It is published, owned, and copyrighted by MCDM Productions LLC. All rights reserved. This podcast is based on the following game content created and owned by MCDM Productions Draw Steel Heroes and Draw Steel Monsters 2025, and The Delian Tomb 2025, available at mcdmproductions.com. Tiny Table is an independent production by Tiny Table LLC. Now you've got everything you need to play a game of Draw Steel. The world of chaos looms before you, but you have nothing to fear. Even should the sun stop in the sky, you will remember your oath. All that remains is to roll the bones. Peace out. Hi, and thank you for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, then we'd really appreciate if you left us a review. If you really like what we do here and want to support us further, you can join us at patreon.com/tinytablepodcast. Our business email is also open for inquiries at tinytablebusiness@gmail.com, and all of our socials can be found in the episode description for any shenanigans you might want to follow. Till next time, see ya!